You're going to need a team. This is not a solo job. This is not a solo effort. Every superpower does have a shadow side. That's important, you know, that all that momentum that I just explained to you, there needs to be some stillness to counteract that.
The way we battle those giants along our hero's journey, the outcome of a win or a loss is dependent on that.
Don't beat yourself up if you resonate with this. Give yourself love, give yourself grace, and realize you were probably trained to do this.
Guys, so many gems. Okay, we're gonna have like so many good clips from this. This is so good. I'm like so excited.
When you're negotiating or even when you're developing pricing, you can really undersell yourself.
So guys, I've done this. Please listen to her. Okay, yes, love yourself or else your bank won't love you.
No one makes magic in business like Disney. Join us as we hear from Disney cast members, influencers, and enthusiasts to uncover the secrets of what it takes behind the scenes to make Disney such a successful and well-loved brand. We will hear their journeys, inspirations, and have some good old-fashioned Disney fun along the way. So relax, pull up a chair, be our guest, and let's get down to Bippity Boppity Business.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Bippity Boppity Business. I'm super excited to be recording in person. What a treat. We don't always get to do that on the show at Mixed Theory Studios with my special guest, Coach KBar. Thank you, Coach. How are you doing?
Everybody, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Good. So tell everyone just like the, magical moment where we met and kind of vibed. Where were we? What were we doing?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I believe we met at the Women's Business Luncheon.
Yes.
So that is a luncheon that was held monthly prior to the COVID era, and kind of bringing it back and resurrecting it so that we can support each other in the entrepreneurial and business community.
Right. So why I really resonated, I wasn't planning on going to, I resonated with you. I wasn't planning on going to the networking event, but kind of a couple days before I decided I wanted to go. And I really loved your presentation. You were talking about how, we all have different personalities, work, preferences, but also just like styles in general. We all think, act, and feel different. And, that's actually something that I've really been embracing and trying to encourage entrepreneurs, that there may be many ways to do the things that you need to do in order for you to be successful in your business. I think a common misconception is, in order for you to be successful, there's one right way. There's one way of how you should be, how you have to wake up at 6 a.m. and do an ice bath and, have this schedule and be really regimented. And what I really loved about your presentation is it reaffirmed for me that, it is okay to be different, but different is welcomed if you find the right tools to go with it. So that being said, the reason why is because as I think about business and, not just my business, but the people who are listening, it's hard to find your purpose in your business if you don't really know how your brain works and what your strengths are and how you like to function, right? Because they kind of all go together. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about purpose. We're going to talk about once you find that purpose in your business or just that journey along the way, like how to build your character archetypes, which has a fun Disney twist to it. We'll get into that too. But we'll also kind of tell a fun story to educate and inspire you, maybe surprise appearance from Elsa somewhere maybe will be on the screen. But before we get into that, I really just wanted to talk to you about your journey and have the audience get to know you a little bit. So I'm sure you didn't wake up and you didn't wake up one day and say, I'm a coach, right?
That was not in the childhood dream necessarily, right. Although I did want to be a teacher and a missionary, which I believe is a good combination for becoming a coach.
Tell me more about that journey for you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for asking. I started my career, like many of your audience members, as a child, teaching, guiding, coaching, providing that sense of belonging with those around me, and just trying to be uplifting, right? Although I'm sure many would have called it bossy.
My mom has told me before that my teacher in kindergarten told me I was bossy, and she was like, good. Right?
I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. Is
exactly.
My new favorite saying. Leadership skills, right, for women. And so for me, how that translated in college is just working with after aftercare for youth, at-risk youth, planning events. And so I really enjoy having fun. I have a lot of energy, started planning events for them, got into the event planning field in the music industry, actually, out in Silicon Valley. Did a lot out there with some innovators in the music space and worked my way through the music industry doing events.
Wow.
Loved it. Loved doing the events. What I realized is that a lot of people are throwing money at events without that larger understanding of the strategy that it plays and the impact. And how do you measure that? And what's your goal? And so that led me to an interest in marketing. And as I began learning more about small business versus the larger businesses, what does the larger business have that the smaller business doesn't, right? And it is really about operating strategically. It's about understanding your brand identity and the archetypes and the way that that can play into the communication process and connect emotionally with your audience. And then what I realized is that even when you have all of those things, small business or large, self-doubt creeps in.
Right. You can have all the tools, you can have the system, you can even have a great team, but up here and in here is what really helps make the impact and change the narrative for the business.
Absolutely. And so to the earlier conversation about being a teacher and a missionary, so that's where the missionary piece comes in, right? Like bringing people gently back home to themselves, not because I can tell you, but just providing that space for people to make that discovery and explore on their own and to be in an affirming space and to talk about what you are, not what you aren't, right? Like I'm not somebody who gets up at 6 a.m. Okay, great. Well, who are you, right? Who are you and what's great about you? I'm really tapping into the field of positive psychology, which is capitalizing on your strengths, realizing what's right about humans as opposed to what's wrong about humans.
So that brings me an analogy, kind of an idea. It reminds me of a Disney movie, right? Where it's actually really funny. So it's Lilo and Stitch is just coming to mind for me right now. And there's this scene where like Stitch kind of starts to feel like he's out of place. He looks at the little, the cute little ugly duckling, book, the sad ugly duckling book, and starts to realize he's different and maybe something's wrong with him. And that's part of what causes him to spiral in the middle of the movie, where he kind of loses himself, his sense of self. And I think for anyone listening, I think in the entrepreneurial journey, I think we all have our Stitch moments where we kind of look in the mirror and go, oh, I don't like what I see. I don't like how I'm doing things. I don't like how I'm leading. I don't like, why I'm doing it. I don't actually know why I can't really put the pieces together, and can have a bit of maybe a Stitch meltdown, right? So
Absolutely.
So how do you guide somebody that's kind of come down from the Stitch moment that come to you and then they come to you and they're like, hey, I'm actually ready to get my everything on track, get started. Where do you even start with something like that?
That's a great question. And again, it really depends on the individual. I meet them where they're at, right? That's the most important thing. I think if your audience can take one thing away from today, it would be to count your wins. Because I noticed that we tend to celebrate and notice our losses so many more times than our wins. And we do this a lot before we go to bed. We do it first thing in the morning. So if you could change one habit right now, I would say count your wins. Count your wins. And then also it's about getting to know yourself and your strengths and capitalizing on those rather than trying to fix what your perceived weaknesses are.
Rather than trying to fix what your perceived weaknesses are, you're capitalizing on your strengths. Tell me more about how that looks in action in life and every day.
Sure, absolutely. So I think, for example, that there are some people who are good at starting a project or executing a project or finishing a project. Not everybody's the same. Some people are better at the executing and the finalizing stage. So they're better with deadlines, right? And so I see a lot of my clients who fit into that category of being finalizers, beating themselves up because they're not the self-starters that they think they ought to be, rather than partnering with people maybe who are self-starters or using tools that can help them to get going. They character assassinate themselves, call themselves procrastinators, and that's not usually helpful for their momentum or their stability. And so what I enjoy doing is using archetypes, marketing archetypes, or personality test to say, this is you, this is the fingerprint of how the creator, whatever you believe the creator is, made you, science, God, the universe. And let's celebrate that, and let's rise to our purpose, and let's embrace that instead of trash talking ourselves or believing that we're not worthy or just thinking we should be somebody else. I would say that's one of the number one challenges that business owners have when they come into a coaching program with me, is believing they should run their business like somebody else. They ought to be pushy sales people, right? Or they think they have to be aggressive or take ice baths at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I think it's that resistance to the call, like Elsa has in Frozen, right? It's their true inner self calling to them. And it's that refusal of the adventure, like the call to adventure.
Let's get into the Elsa story a little bit, because I love this. Because when I watched Frozen 2, when she hears this call, this sound or whatever, you know, admittedly, this is a Disney podcast. Okay, so yes, I was excited about it, but also it really resonated with me in a different way, because I think as entrepreneurs, we feel this call to something bigger and like amazing and maybe even scary to us, right? Like there's a bigger purpose to pursue or achieve that's can be sometimes overwhelming, right? So we can either ignore the call and end up, you know, in our heads and then not being clear on what we want to do with our life, or we can choose to answer it. So specifically, we're talking about the song Into the Unknown, right?
Yes.
So it's her hero's journey. And it's Elsa, right? But also there's a partnership there. Her and her sister, they're kind of partners. So why I'm trying to explain this is, if you are an entrepreneur and you're going through this, I'm doing one thing one way, but I feel like it's not sitting right with me, or I might want to pivot, and maybe you have someone that can support you on that journey, we really want to kind of dive into that story to use it as a teaching moment. So let's start there, because we'll get into the beginning of the story, right? So Elsa, she hears the call, right? So for an entrepreneur, what does that relate to, or how does that translate into a business owner when they're trying to feel a pull or a desire to do a certain type of business, or maybe change the way that they're doing business?
That's a great question. And I think what's really important to start with is to take a step back and realize that the beginning of that movie starts in the ordinary world.
Right.
In Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, the journey begins that everything is fine. So you may be in your 9-to-5 job, or you may be a new mom, or new dad, or right. Everything might be kind of ordinary for you, and then all of a sudden you get a calling.
It's like
call to adventure. Yes. I've been bitten by the bug, so to speak. Right. So that's where I think, you know, that calling to adventure is what Elsa is experiencing. And if you listen to the song that she sings during that part of the movie, she's trying to quiet the voice. She's resisting the adventure.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because it's into the unknown.
Right.
And humans have a deep need for certainty, but also a deep need for variety.
How many of us have resisted that call because we want to be comfortable and we don't even realize it? There's so many choices that we unintentionally or maybe subconsciously make in order to kind of quiet it, because it can feel scary, right? Like, I think fear is not discussed enough in the journey of entrepreneurship. And as a coach, like, what is the antidote to fear in business?
That's a great question. My first gut reaction is curiosity and love.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Curiosity and love. And that's because, you know, as kids, we don't see new things in a lens of, we see them from a lens of like, oh, that's so interesting, like wonder, right? Finding wonder in our work means sometimes going back to that inner child mindset of when you tried to play the piano for the first time, or when you got to, do a dance routine with your best friend for the first time. Like all those firsts, I think life can jade us, because, you know, business, it's not a Disney movie, it's real life. But I think even in the movie Frozen, we really see the perils and the struggle that the main character Elsa goes through, right? So it's ordinary time. She doesn't want, she's also had this complex where she has to be in charge the entire time. She really didn't she didn't really have the opportunity to give herself permission to explore what she wants, because as I guess I can, see this for many women in business as well. We have many hats that we have to wear depending on if we have kids or if we have family obligations or our business is our whole life, whatever it may be. Like, there's so many obligations that we have to do that sometimes we forget to allow ourselves that we get to do things.
Absolutely. And that's the difference between freedom and feeling like you're overwhelmed a lot of times, is that, you wake up and you say, I get to do this. I get to do this, right? And that feeling of overwhelm, I will take a moment to comment on that, because I think we can dissect that.
Let's do it, yeah. And because that was a very prevalent emotion in the movie as well, too, where it's like there's things happening, there, voices, music, there's this very visual embodiment of what overwhelm can look like inside, and those scenes that lead up to after the ordinary time. It's very chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to recognize and validate and legitimize that feeling, because it is not easy to be an entrepreneur, right? It's not easy to own a business. Nobody's telling you what to do every day. You got to kind of figure a lot of stuff out yourself. There are some tried and true methods, right? But you're still trying to do things your own way. So how much do you do of each? And so for me, what I realized is that the feeling of overwhelm is almost always accompanied by the belief that you don't have what you need to accomplish the mission.
Say that one more time for me so I can process it. That's very powerful.
Absolutely. For me, the feeling of overwhelm is almost always accompanied by the belief that I don't have what it takes to accomplish the mission. I don't have the tools. I don't have the team. I don't have the inner, strength or wisdom. I don't know this or I don't know that. And so I would encourage the listeners or anyone in business to ask themselves, when they're overwhelmed, what do I need to accomplish this mission?
What do I need? Do I need a side character?
Yeah, do I need a side character?
Do I need a friendly animal side character?
Do I need a plot twist?
Do I need a plot twist? Do I need a magic wand, where in our world that would be a tool or a system or AI or a process? Like, what is it that we need to go through that overwhelm? Because I feel that too, and I'm sure you feel that way. And I think that's a beautiful reminder, because there is an inherent root feeling and a root cause to overwhelm that we often do feel as entrepreneurs, especially in early stages too. It's that FOMO feeling or the imposter syndrome. Like, there's all these feelings that we have, but I think just slowing down and like listening to yourself and choosing to, okay, maybe I do need to answer this call. How do I become ready for the challenge? How do I go on this journey? What do I need to prepare to go on my own business hero's journey, right? Once it's like that moment of acceptance, right?
Absolutely. And that's when the next stage begins, where you meet the mentor before you cross that threshold, right? So it could be a guide, it could be a coach, it could be a sidekick like Anna or Olaf.
Yes.
It could be an organization, but you're going to need a village, okay? You're going to need a community. You're going to need a team. This is not a solo job. This a solo effort.
Okay, because I want to ruffle a little bit of feathers, because whenever I hear the word solopreneur or solo entrepreneur, I understand it and I think it's valid, but I also think it's not entirely 100% true for your mental health long term, right?
That's a good point.
Right. So I think even if you are your own person, your own business owner, you are doing all the things, finding your community or finding a mentor maybe like you to help guide you along the way is going to be so important, because sometimes we just need to get out of our own heads.
Absolutely. And I have quite a team of people, and I would like to say that it started with 5 minutes of stillness in nature.
Really?
My team began with just making that space to be quiet and listen to the stillness and be okay with that. And in that stillness, asking myself, what do I need for the next step? You don't have to know the whole journey. That takes the fun and the growth out of it, right?
I love that, because I think we often get stuck in the, I don't know the whole thing, so I'm not going to do it.
Right. We try and do it all at once. I certainly do. I certainly try to, as they say, eat the proverbial elephant all at once.
Yes.
And it's really just about the next step, right?
Wow.
So starting with 5 minutes of stillness a day, anyone can do that. It's free. We don't often do it. The more we can do it, the better. And, now I look around, I have acupuncturist, I have a chiropractor, I have a couple of business coaches myself, relationship coaches, right? You got to have your personal life to support you as well. So this is a 360, right? This village, this community, this team that you need.
Right. And I want to pause on Elsa's story for just a second, because when you just told me how you found that stillness in 5 minutes, like that was kind of like a turning point for you in a way, or an unlock, what was the first time you felt like you were working in your own purpose in your business and in your life?
That is a great question. I think when I made the decision to become a full-time business coach, I was working with one of North America's largest coaching companies, and I realized this is what I'm supposed to be doing in this world, right? There's a dream I had. Not many people know, what their life calling is through a dream necessarily. Maybe some do, but I had that dream. And
you had an actual dream?
I had
like
an actual
Disney
dream.
level, like
Disney level, like Disney level, go to dream. Had an angel appear and had a conversation, and it changed my life. It really rooted me firmly into everything that had happened in my life until that point that didn't seem to make sense, and everything that I could do with that moving forward. There was that thread, and that's a moment you hear a lot of people talking about understanding God's grace in retrospect.
Yes.
And that's kind of what happened for me. And so now I'm on this journey to bring people home to themselves, to teach them to love themselves, because we can't really fill up, another container. We can't do the good in this world, the gifts that we were given, until we really love ourselves. And that is the beginning of the journey, I think. And to me, that's the ultimate hero's journey.
That's so powerful, because when we finally decide to love ourselves, what I do see from stories, at least, which you probably can see, is that we end up coming home to ourselves. And sometimes that looks like what we loved as kids, or sometimes it looks like what we liked as a teen, or just whatever it was before the world made us feel like we weren't good enough to do it, or we should do something else. And those shoulds, man, they really stink.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
I'm going to give everyone a quick tool to use when they are shoulding all over themselves. Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So I have found that when the word should comes up, it's a great tool to stop and pause and ask yourself, am I judging myself? Or am I judging someone else? Or am I judging the situation?
Interesting.
Almost always, I've noticed a relationship between when I use the word should or my clients use the word should, there's some judgment in there. And the challenge with that is that guilt and shame are so often at the root of that judgment. And I can't imagine you would want to show up for work or your business with a boss who's got you in a guilt and shame spiral, right?
Right.
That's not motivating. And so we end up thinking we're not good at this job, or we don't know what's wrong, or we can't call our clients, or we can't do our work, when really what we're doing is avoiding this feeling of heaviness and judgment. And we should be doing this and we're not. And so instead of just taking one small bite or 5 minutes of stillness and not seeing the whole journey, and maybe, instead of being perfectionistic about it, we're kind of, give ourselves a little grace.
Right.
Right? We're really just trying to avoid the judgment. We're not trying to avoid the task. We're trying to avoid being judged, often by ourselves.
That is so profound, because, there was something similar to that I saw the other day, which is, like you said, sometimes when we tell ourselves we should do something, it prevents us from even wanting to do it, because now we feel guilty and shameful about it, right?
Yes.
And there's this YouTuber I watch. She has a really great channel. I'll link her information down below. But she said sometimes you don't need to try harder. You need to try different. And I think for someone who is in a, personally me, I go through the should spiral. I think we all do tell ourselves what we should do or what we have to do. Thinking to myself, okay, can I try different? starts to unlock what you're talking about, which is giving yourself the permission to give yourself the grace to look at the situation differently and say, okay, well, how can we go about this? Because the dark side to the call, which that Elsa probably didn't talk about, is the voice is telling you that you can't and that you shouldn't and how dare you and this is wrong and guilt and, all of those feelings come with the decision to continue on the journey. But I love how, you were able to find that for yourself and you were able to pursue it. Like, that makes me so excited because it makes me feel so much hope and just love by proxy, because I feel the energy you're putting out, right? Versus what you were saying earlier, a leader who's leading from a place of guilt or shame that unfortunately can cause an unintentional spiral and ripple effect into all of your life.
Absolutely. Or obligation, overwhelm, all of those things, the guilt, the shame, obligation, overwhelm, they're all things that can keep you stuck in the mud. And when we get curious and when we love ourselves, that has motion to it. And that gives us momentum and stability.
Momentum and stability? Both? We can't have that?
Isn't that amazing?
Is that real life?
It's a constant search.
Yeah.
And I find that some people are naturally better at momentum, and some people are naturally better at stability, and some people are ambidextrous. But that's a question I might ask myself if you're having a challenge in your business, or even if you want to grow in your business and things are great and you want to take it to the next level. Where do I need stability? Where do I need momentum? And what do I need to stop, and keep doing to get that?
Guys, so many gems. Okay, we're gonna have so many good clips from this. This is so good. I'm so excited, because you're really. I feel like right now, I'm gonna pretend I'm Elsa. Okay, and you're my mentor, right? So right now it's okay, I decided I'm gonna go on the journey, and I'm going to start. You've given me a toolkit here, right? You've talked about when there is overwhelm, obligation, shame, or guilt. To rather than consider that, consider love, self-love, consider, what else did you say?
So what do I need to accomplish this mission? And so change your overwhelm from I can't do this, I'm overwhelmed, to I can do this, what do I need in order for that to happen?
That's amazing.
That's a curiosity piece a little, yeah?
Right, curiosity and wonder. Those were the other things. So if we're going on the journey, we've decided, okay, let's go into the unknown. We went out, we love ourselves, we're going to try it, we're scared, but we love ourselves and we're going to do it anyways, right? You're going to start facing some giants along the way, right?
Absolutely, always.
Because you can love yourself, but then there's going to be things that pop up that shake up your world.
It could be a change in the marketplace. It could be something happens in your life personally. There's always going to be challenges. And I want to really underscore that is when we tap into our strengths.
And that's challenges are when we tap into our strengths.
Well, I hope we're always tapping into our strengths, right? But certainly in those times of challenge, we can tap into our self-doubt, which might be normal. We can tap into fear, or we can look at our toolkit and say, which of these strengths do I need to leverage in this situation? And think about Disney stories and the different special powers that people have, right? And you look at the challenges Elsa faces or any of the Disney characters, and they tap into their strengths.
That moment where they decide to stop viewing their superpowers as negatives and, the things that people gawked at them for, like, oh, you're different, this and that. And the moment they decided to shift and say, well, these actually are my superpowers. The things that I thought were so bad and made me so different and made me think that I didn't belong are actually the things that make me unique, special, and successful. For a lot of entrepreneurs, I see that.
Absolutely. For me too. I'd love to give you a concrete example,
yes,
just to, open up and share vulnerability, right?
Yes.
Today. I come from a military background. Grew up in a military family in a military town, joined the military. So structure was a big part of my life and a big part of the belief that I had in what makes a great business owner.
Wow.
Now listen, you do need a little structure, you do need a little process and systems to create some consistent results. However, I have a huge piece of my personality that is creative and loves to explore, is into growth, and just kind of really disruptive and like, let's kick up the status quo.
Right.
Which is very much not about structure. It gives me
the antithesis of structure.
The antithesis, right? And it's kind of my superpower is to help people just disrupt thoughts that aren't serving them or beliefs that aren't serving them, or just even just to adopt maybe another perspective. What other story can we tell ourselves? And so that's my superpower, but I think I kind of held it to myself, just close to my chest, thinking that it wasn't important.
Aww,
right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It was my journey. It was my hero's journey.
Yes.
That I had to come to self-acceptance. And again, that's the strengths, the positive psychology piece. So I would really encourage people, like, take multiple personality tests, circle the things that resonate with you, create a mission statement from that. Because when you know what you're for and who you're for, nothing can stop you.
It's like that battle cry call feeling. It's like, into the unknown. Here we go. Like, that's what that makes me feel like. Because you're right. When you have that, fuel, and you know where you're going, like, you can keep going, right?
Absolutely. And for so long, I thought I have to be this structured, accountant style, dotting my I's and crossing my T's and just be a craftsman and perfect. And I'm really good at being messy and disrupting and just, taking a new path. And so that's the gift that I bring. And I think that's an example of why it's so important to embrace your strength, embrace that superpower. Like Elsa at first put gloves on, she didn't want to share that. And so with that said, every superpower does have a shadow side. That's important, that all that momentum that I just explained to you, there needs to be some stillness to counteract that. And so what can happen is if I'm feeling stifled or trapped, if I'm not aware of that, and if I'm not aware that I'm feeling that, it can really show up in my business. It can show up in my communication. It can show up in my mood, right? So just to be aware that there's a shadow side to every gift, but not to judge yourself for that. Just understand maybe that's not a helpful application of my natural ability. Right. It's not a flaw.
It's not a flaw. And especially, I'm glad you brought in that, first movie analogy when she put those gloves on, because that's what the shadow side of it looks like. If you don't love and tame and figure out, tame is, that's not the best word, but like understand is a better word. When you understand yourself and you use those to your strength, then it's not such a scary thing anymore. But
absolutely. Then you accept yourself fully, bruises, cuts, warts and all, as they say. And again, we're going back to that piece about loving yourself, because when you love yourself, you are making smarter business decisions. Right?
Tell me more about that. I need to hear it. Because that sounds from a surface level, people are like, oh yeah, cute. Like, I love me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, okay,
sure.
But like, give me let's go deeper on that, because it's very important.
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the main things that I see in for business owners that really undercuts their profit, or their ability to earn, is a tendency to people please.
Yeah.
Right? And so by people please, I mean to put the desires and comfort level of others above yourself, not to, care about both people or all people involved, but just to really self-abandon your own needs, wants, and desires for the needs, wants, and desires of others. And so when you're negotiating, or even when you're developing pricing, you can really undersell yourself. So
guys, I've done this. Please listen to her. Okay, yes, love yourself or else your bank won't love you. That's another way to say it.
It's so true, right? Like, everything around us is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. So the next time you're having a challenge, rather than having an excuse about the outside world, and I'm going to have to replay this and play it for myself from time to time. Just remember, like, what is it about my relationship with myself right now that isn't working and is manifesting in the outside world, right? So it does come out in your under-earning when you're people-pleasing. It comes out through exhaustion. We're often trying to solve problems that no one asked us to solve and that aren't the real problem, right?
I've heard that before. I wonder where I've heard that before. Yeah.
So it can just really leave us exhausted, which is easy to get exhausted as an entrepreneur anyway.
Like, we're already tired. Like,
Yeah.
why are we why are we creating fake things for us to fix?
Absolutely. I would say, like, don't beat yourself up if you resonate with this. Give yourself love, give yourself grace, and realize you were probably trained to do this.
Interesting.
You are probably trained, and it's a shadow side of a relational ability that you have.
Interesting.
You have this beautiful ability to care about other people, to want to serve them, right? But there's a difference between serving people and pleasing them.
There's a difference between serving people and pleasing them. Let's play it back at least 4 times for both of us for later.
Absolutely.
Editor, clip that out. The editor's me. It's fine. So, okay, I'm really, I'm feeling really enlightened by the concept of loving yourself doesn't just show up in relationships. It doesn't just show up in, doing a bubbly bath and giving yourself a face mask or whatever.
It's a daily practice.
It's a daily practice. And I think, you will need to be able to love yourself to face those giants that we've talked about.
1,000%.
Right?
1,000%.
Because the way we battle those giants along our hero's journey, the outcome of a win or a loss is dependent on that.
Absolutely. And I think one tool that we can use as we face the giants in life is just to look at ourselves and be honest about what we're feeling with a sense of compassion and not try to be the hero all the time. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
We don't have to be the hero all the time.
We don't have to be the hero all the time. Again, the hero's journey is about, going into the cave and going into the darkness and fighting the giants, fighting the unknown, whatever that demon is for you, it is there to be your servant, not your master.
Guys, this is a Disney movie right now. I feel like I'm watching one right now as we're talking. I'm just mind blown by that, because it can be crippling if we don't have that mindset. We will lose the battle with the giant. We will feel that it is there to tell us, okay, this is a sign I shouldn't do this anymore, because sometimes we look for fake signs that we shouldn't be doing the thing that we want to be doing anymore, because it's hard, right? But I think in Elsa's story, I think the beauty of what, even when she was at her lowest, what brought her out of that was her sister, right? So, not all of us have business partners, but we might have life partners, we may have friends, we may have mentors, whoever they are. But I think being able to work with that other person is crucial, because there may be moments where we really don't feel like we have it in us to win the battle.
Or like Anna in the cave, right? Remember when she's like, I've never been so discouraged and so dark, right? And then those little pieces of hope came from her sister. Yeah. And Olaf started to come to life again. I wish we all had an Olaf. He's like my business coach.
Yes, I need an Olaf. Yes, that'd be so great. Yeah, because everyone needs warm hugs sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but that moment in the cave, specifically for Anna, okay, she's, like you said, she's sitting there. She's like, her sister is dead. In her mind, the reality of the situation to her in that moment is her sister has died, okay? She has an entire kingdom she has to run. She never wanted to be a queen. Her little Olaf guy, he's not doing so hot either, and that pretty much stinks, because what if your pet dies, Like, there are seasons in life where this is real.
Absolutely.
Loss, self-destruction, emptiness, depression. I mean, that's why this movie was just, it's so relevant to the human experience, because never before have we seen anything like that in a Disney movie to that degree, right? But as a person, as an entrepreneur, like, man, how do we keep doing our business if that's the moment where we're at in the cave? Like, how do we get out? What do we do,
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a lot about having those mentors and those guides and that sense of community. And that's why we need a team, right? To keep us energized. And that's why we need to begin to understand what are the right choices for us and really to anticipate those moments. Here's what I really want people to understand. If you anticipate bumps in the road and make a plan for that ahead of time, you're less caught off guard. One of the things, right, that I learned in the military is that we we always have a battle plan, but we have an expectation that a plan B is very much a part of the equation. So we plan to fail.
Interesting.
So if, for example, with time management, I want to bring this into a real pragmatic, concrete idea for your listeners. So a lot of people are challenged with what they perceive as time management. I think it's really priority management and energy management and boundary management rather than time management, because we can't really manage time. However, what I would suggest for anybody struggling to manage time is anticipate distraction.
Anticipate distraction.
Anticipate distraction and drift, and go ahead and put it on your calendar for Friday.
Okay.
Or whenever, right? Thursday mornings or whatever, just so you can have that downtime to circle back to anything that seemed to, oh, I was supposed to do that on Monday, I didn't do it. Then you're not freaking out because you're like, I know I have time on Friday morning or afternoon or whatever. And it also gives you an opportunity, any distractions that come your way. Hey, I need to talk to you. Great. I have some circle back time on Friday at noon. Would that be okay? How does that sound to you? And then people feel like you've made room for them. You've not let them interrupt your current focus. You've given them space, but you've planned on it, as opposed to feeling very distracted and drifted and then beating yourself up because you didn't do what you're supposed to do that day.
The way my brain synthesizes this is every hero has a journey, but they need time to go on that journey. Okay, you have to take stops along the way.
Yes.
And if you need to plan for it, you might even need a map.
You might need a map. That's true. And here's the thing, the map isn't the territory.
Interesting.
Right? You want to plan, definitely. There's a famous quote that says, plans are essential, but planning is essential, but plans are useless, something to that effect.
Right.
So we do pivot, right? You know this. The best laid plans often go differently. And I guess that's all I'm saying is just to make a plan, but plan for distraction and drift, and just know that you have your toolbox of systems, processes, your strengths, and that you can get through that journey. So almost like putting things in a backpack and general idea of what we're going to do, and we're going to stay focused. We're going to pair up with people to help us get there, and we're going to get to that end point, but be super open about what might happen between here and there.
So in the movie Frozen 2, they get lost in the woods.
Yes.
And they didn't have a plan A, plan B, whatever, and they were also not communicating really well with each other, right?
That's so true.
Right?
Very typical.
Very typical. But the moment where they did and they said, let's come together, let's figure this out together. We're all here now. We're all alive. Nobody's dead. Let's figure it out. And everyone played to their own strengths. That's when the team really came together and they were able to achieve their, end goal or result in the movie. But I feel that that's similar for business too.
Absolutely. I think thing that's really important to understand about this journey that you're on of self-discovery, I hope you don't feel as if it's self-indulgent. I think it's very, very important to understand that this journey that you go on, if you think about the story of Frozen or you think about the story of Moana, for example, one of my favorites, their entire community benefits.
Let's talk about the Moana example a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about the beginning of the story when they weren't allowed to kind of leave the reef. Right. And had come from a long tradition of exploring and navigating. And she goes on her hero's journey, right? She resists the call. She meets the mentor, her grandmother, and then continues to have mentors and allies throughout, and challenges and enemies. Comes through back with the elixir, so to speak.
Right.
And then her whole community is blessed because of that. Wow. Right. And they're able to embrace their roots as navigators and explorers. And I think there's a lot that could be said for that. But
yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. We could do a whole other deep dive on just that if we wanted to.
Absolutely. So just know that the journey that you're on allows you to be the lighthouse, right, for your entire community. But it doesn't, like, so often I see people outwardly facing, and even when it comes to their marketing, right, because I'm a marketing coach as well as a business coach and a life coach. So even in your marketing, I see this big misunderstanding that it's all outwardly facing. It starts within, right? Like when you're developing your marketing plan, it starts with your values and your journey, and what elixir are you bringing back so that you can benefit the entire community of people that you serve.
And then how do you shape it out and message it out? And that's why I think your character archetypes are really powerful. So talk to me just a little bit, and ensure what the character archetypes are. And for anyone listening, if you want to learn more about them, we'll have a resource for character archetypes that Coach KBar will provide us. So we won't go too into like all of it, because like that's like, she's a marketing coach, you can do that work with her. Okay, we're just gonna get into a little bit of it.
Sure.
But what is it, and when you do find your purpose, your why, like how do you really shape it and continue that journey?
That's a great question. And first of all, I want to say I did not by any means invent these character archetypes, but they are based on the work of psychologist Carl Jung. And almost any major brand that you see is using these 12 brand archetypes to tell their story, because as humans, we're hardwired to hear stories, and your clients in your marketing journey, that's what they're tuned into. Where does your story intersect with mine? How do your values align with mine? Right. So I'll take 3 of my character archetypes as an example.
Yes.
The explorer is one of my main archetypes. I love to explore. I love to help others explore. So I'm going to use a lot of language in my marketing that talks about, let's explore a path together. Let's create something new. Anything that gives my clients that feeling of freedom, that they're pursuing freedom and that they're not stuck, right?
Wow, yeah.
Because that's their problem. So as an explorer, I know that when I have a problem, I feel stuck, and that I want to make a mark, and I know I have to go to new territory, and that they might need a guide. Another archetype for me is the hero, which the theme of the hero is determination, grit, and courage. And we see that a lot in the Disney stories. Right? And so that's how I'm going to connect with my clients. I'm going to provide inspirational quotes. I'm going to tap into how to master your marketing, because that's what they're looking for, is how to master their marketing, right? And tell their story. And finally, my third archetype for my coaching business is the maverick, which is sometimes called the outlaw, because we like to do things a little bit different.
A
little rebellious. Well, how I like to rebel is to break up with the status quo.
Ooh.
Right? To the inner status quo that tells us that we can't do it, or to, the status quo of looking at the market and saying, I can't succeed. And so that's how we have a framework that allows for nuance and complexity, while also telling our story and resonating with our audience emotionally, because people buy emotionally and they justify logically.
Yes, they do. And they sense that in your words and your pictures and your actions in everyday life. And when you have that map, and not a structure, like it's not super structured, like to your point, like, but it is a guide in some way. When you have that, you give yourself the room to be flexible and, try new things. So, I mean, maybe we can do like a quick live exercise for that, right? So archetypes, right? So if you were to talk to me and, you were to ask me, what questions would you ask me to help me figure out what my archetypes are?
It's so funny that you say that, because I just made up a quiz to help people with that. On my
quiz, guys.
Website, coachkbar.com. You can take the quiz to go on your adventure to find out, what is most important to you? What are your values? What do you want your message to your audience to be? I give people choices, because a lot of people are like, I don't know what I want my message to be. Because again, they've got backwards. They think marketing is about being overly self-promotional. It's not about you, folks. It's about your audience. You want to make them the hero of their story, right? You don't have to be the hero. So I would ask you, how do you want to make your audience feel, right? What's an example of something in the past that's worked really well for you that you're proud of? And how would you describe that? How would people describe you?
Right. Yeah, I think something that's worked really well is when I'm very relational, right? So obviously this is a podcast, right? You see what's happening here. So when I'm able to make my guest feel like they can be themselves, and we have a good conversation, and I'm able to uplift that person to be able to almost like find the it's similar maybe to being a coach, but not really, where when I can help them get out of their own shell, and like we can have these conversations and work together in that way, very collaborative.
Okay.
It's those collaborative environments where I find that things usually work well and everyone's happy.
What do you love about that process?
I love the creativity, and I love the relational aspect of it. I get momentum and energy off of somebody else's, involvement in the process.
What about light bulb moments? Is that an important piece of the pie for you?
Yes. I love to see a light bulb moment in somebody that I'm working with, because I used to teach music. So before business, all of that, I was trying to do music, and I taught piano and vocal to kids. And it was my favorite thing to do was see that growth and that progress and that aha moment. Like, it was just like, I'm sure you identify with that 100%.
Absolutely. I love that. So like all kinds of archetypes are popping up for me right now, right? We couldn't necessarily pinpoint for sure in one conversation without some additional tools.
Right.
But what popped up for me right away was sage and that light bulb moment. I was just kind of sensing that for you. And then you said you teach.
Yeah.
So that is also another component. So think Google, PBS, that answer you've been looking for, right? That light in the darkness, that luminary.
Yes.
With the Disney angle, that's all about magician. I mean, Disney, they are archetype magician through and through, about transformation. Things can come true, believing in the extraordinary, the magic wand,
believing in the impossible too.
Yes, wishing on a star, right? So that's magician archetype is in there. Loving to be there for another human in that relational way, to be dependable. That's your everyday citizen or your guy or girl next door. You're dependable, you're reliable. People can count on you. To that feeling of connection and belonging is very key to that archetype as an example. I get a little bit of an explorer vibe from you as well, and a little bit of a creator vibe from you. So creator, think Legos, think Apple, anybody who actually helps you gain more expression and control, believe it or not, through creativity to build something that's your own. So
that was a cool little zinger moment for me. Gave me a light bulb moment. Control through creativity, because that is not something a lot of people talk about. They make you think that it's the other way around, that if you're creative, you're messy and there's no control.
Right, but it is about ownership of that process and creating something new in the world and having control over that process.
Ooh, all right, guys, you got to check out the quiz and do it, because I'm gonna keep going on this journey for myself. But when overall, like, we've talked about a lot of things just now, right? And we've kind of bebopped around a little bit, but that's the beauty of Bippity Boppity Business, all right? It's very fluid. It's like we're letting it be natural, right? But a few things that I really wanted to, actually, let me rephrase that. One thing that I really wanted to give you the opportunity to share is if you could go back to the beginning of your journey, right? You had a magic wand or time travel machine, and you could go back to the beginning of before you discovered all of these things. What would you tell that version of yourself?
That's a great question. So what I might say to my younger self is basically what you're asking, right? Don't worry. It doesn't make sense now, but it will all make sense in the end. It will all make sense in the end. And you're worthy. And I might encourage myself to trust myself a little bit more, to give myself a little bit more grace, and to count my wins more often.
Right. I hope we can all count our wins more often, especially on this show. So I'm going to celebrate you for you being here and the wins of us doing this episode. Later, there's going to be a follow-up episode. I'm interviewing a gentleman named Joel, and we're going to talk about the ta-da concept. So you better check that one out. I think you're going to really like it. But I'm just teasing. Like, I'm doing a little Easter egg, like Disney Easter egg. But before we wrap up, there is a fun Disney segment that we need to do, because it's the Disney podcast side of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's have a little bit of fun, and let's do a little bit of a Disney rapid fire question section.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Okay, ready?
I might have to edit a lot. I'm not sure.
Don't worry.
We'll see.
You'll like it. You'll like it. Don't worry.
All
Okay.
right.
Favorite Disney park to go to or excited to be going to?
Oh, well, let me just tell you this. In about 2 weeks, we're going to all 4 of them with my 6-year-old daughter. So I'm super excited, and I have not been to Epcot. She's never been to Disney. This is her first journey to Disney, so this is going to be amazing.
It's going to be so cool. And you've never been to Epcot?
Never been to Epcot.
Okay. We're gonna talk about this. So there's so many things you need to do, but absolutely, you need to check out there's a French pavilion section, and it could be a little nice gift for her. There's like a perfume and whatever store inside, and maybe, not perfume now, but they have different things in there or whatever. And they do custom engravings in there with like your name or your date or something like that. And even if you don't buy one, you should totally go and see them do it. Like, it's a craftsman doing it like right in front of you.
It's very cool.
It is really cool. But adjacent to that, there's the yummiest ice cream.
We are an ice cream family. I'll have to tell you that.
Yes, just the yummiest ice cream is in there, and that's the one tip for Epcot.
And the Frozen ride is
the
there.
Frozen
She's
ride is
loving
there.
that series, which is far more amazing than I realized after I watched Frozen 2. I'm like, that has some depth to it. That's some
You're
teeth.
totally. Oh my gosh! I wish this cut to us on the Frozen ride just now. Like I wish that's what we're like.
Let's make it happen. Maybe I'll send you some footage.
Yeah, send me some footage. More importantly, I really wanted to appreciate you and thank you for your time being here. If people want to connect with you, how can they best do that?
I love that question. If you go to coachkbar.com, I actually just published a blog talking about the hero's journey in Moana and Frozen 2, actually.
Okay.
So it's kind of appropriate.
Yes.
And part 2 of that blog will be, what does that mean for you and your business as you go through the life cycle of your business? How can you apply the hero's journey there? I also have the quiz where they can find their archetype. Every brand, every business has a story. Who are the characters in your story? And how can you help your client be the hero? While you're on your hero's journey, they're looking to you to be their guide and their mentor on their hero's journey. And so to do that, let's talk about what makes you different, unique, what means a lot to you, what's your message in this world. And so archetypes can help you do that. So there's a free quiz there, and I will follow up, no pressure, right?
Yes.
But if you want, I can follow up and talk to you a little bit more about the archetypes that seem to resonate with you and what that means for you and your business and your ability to tell your story and ultimately turn that into higher profit and higher impact and influence if that's a part of your mission as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to figure out how to do what we love and not hate it and get paid for it and hopefully enjoy it along the way and ironically enough, figure out who we are in the process. Because I never thought when I'd be an entrepreneur that I would have to do all this. I thought I would just do it, right?
Well, that's the technician role, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. Well, anyways, thank you so much. And this has been Bippity Boppity Business. Is there anything you'd like to shout out into the camera before we wrap for today?
Thank everybody for listening. Thank you to everybody who has given me the wisdom to say everything that I just said. Thank you to you for being here and asking me these questions. And I just, again, want to thank my community and my support people because it's because of you that I can be here, and I'm sending all my love to you. And for those of you I haven't met yet, I can't wait to connect.
Oh, awesome. All right. Have a magical day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Bippity Boppity Business. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple or listen to us anywhere you prefer listening to your podcast. Until next time, have a magical day.